Hello everyone, we're standing here today at World Hydrogen Week, organized by World Hydrogen Leaders. My name is Johann Wiebe, Executive Director from the Hydrogen Standard. And with me here today stands Mogens Holm from Boston Consulting Group. Welcome, Mogens.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you. Okay, Mogens, tell us a little bit about Boston Consulting Group and their involvement in the hydrogen space.
So in the hydrogen space over the last, I would say, couple of years, we've done more than 150 projects within this space. Initially, it was strategy, where you can say many of the leading players, both in oil and gas, energy, in industrial goods and OEMs, they asked, okay, this hydrogen, is this a good or bad thing for me? So that was the initial part, so what we'll call basic strategies. But it has very much evolved into being much more about how we do it. And that means, for instance, a lot of my work now is for asset developers and trying to help them reaching FID and therefore scaling the industry.
Thank you for the introduction. Scaling is obviously an important topic in the industry right now. A lot of projects are being researched to finish or reach completion or at least go to FID. Electrolyzer is a similar sort of situation. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of the scaling of the industry and from your perspective?
Yeah, I'm afraid that it's not necessarily that positive. We hear a lot of great ambitions out there. I think the Hydrogen Council, for instance, are saying 35 million ton in 2035. We hear others coming, like we have EU with 10 million ton import, for instance, in 2030. The fact is that when we look at the pipeline out there, potentially around 4 to 5% of the total announced projects are capable of reaching that in 2030. So it's probably more a question around not reaching the ambition, but how late we're going to be in reaching the ambitions that we have set.
The ambitions are very ambitious. Surely that's the case. Tell us a little bit about cost, sort of some of the projects out there and how to reduce them, also for hydrogen, maybe some of the derivatives as well.
Yeah, so exactly. Many of our asset developers out there, so they are facing very high costs, and the willingness to pay from the off-taker side is not necessarily matching that. That's one thing. Then they have dependency of infrastructure, which is an issue. But we see some improvements in getting what we will call the IRRs, so they are acceptable, and therefore projects can go to FID, also with a decent risk. One is what I will call the sector coupling champion. And that is especially in the renewable sectors, where we see in countries like the Nordics, we see it, for instance, also in some areas in the US, we see it in Latin America, where the power market is now at a challenged, and the prices there are very low. And therefore hedging with hydrogen when the power market prices are low is one way of actually both saving the renewable sectors in some of these areas, but also actually creating a decent vision for P2X.
That's interesting. We haven't really heard a lot about hedging with hydrogen. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? How does that work?
Yeah, so basically what happens is that if we let's take the Nordics as an example. If we continue installing the amount of renewables that we expect in the North Sea, we will see, for instance, in Denmark as an example, that we will have probably 40 to 50% of the time a power price below 20 euro per megawatt hour. That is very challenging if you are only selling power going forward. So therefore, hedging is therefore a competitive necessity, basically, and that's the sector coupling. It's not just hedging to the power sector versus then when do you produce molecules. It could also be sector coupling to heat, district heating. We have that in the Nordics as a good example for it again. And also actually providing flexibility into the power sector as ancillary services. So that's a couple of examples of what it could be in one context.
Thank you for that answer. That was very clear and interesting. Transport and infrastructure, a lot has been said about it. You mentioned also some of it in your answers. Could you allude a little bit about that?
Yeah, so many asset developers, one of their key risks, in addition to the willingness to pay and the regulatory conditions, is also, no doubt, the dependency on infrastructure being available. An example in Europe is pipelines, of course, the hydrogen pipelines. And here we will likely see that, for instance, the government goes in and basically dictates development of pipelines. But what's going to be the tariff cost? That's still quite uncertain in some markets, and therefore difficult to basically put into when you are bidding for asset developer projects around the world.
Mogens Holm from Boston Consulting Group, thank you very much.
Thank you.